Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to my fan commentary on episode 20 of Power Rangers Time Force Quantum Secrets. And this is the episode where we get our introduction to, a Six Rangers Battlizer for the first time in Power Rangers. Let alone probably the only time, unless if you count Orion's Super Mega Gold mode and Super Mega Force, maybe? This entire episode, except for the Mega Battle stuff, is a complete translation of the exact Time Ranger episode that was focused on the Quantum Ranger Sentai counterpart. Because in the Time Ranger episode, again, the Mega Battle thing was only a Power Rangers invention. It was never a Sentai invention. I actually like the fact this episode did give us more in-depth about the Quantum Rangers' powers, and then about how the technology for the Morpher is ahead of its time, because with the Quantum Rangers Morpher, they want to discover how was the Morpher fully made. This entire moment here was already like in the Time Ranger episode, because you can see the Silver Guardians and Sentai footage. You gotta love Eric as a cock blocker. Every time when the Rangers about to go out or about to, save the day, then the Quantum Ranger and the Silver Guardians take up their space. When the Rangers are looking all depressed and mopey, well, in the original dub of the episode, the Pink Ranger didn't say anything, but in the dub here, she does say something about it, because it's like they really, intended to make this episode about Eric and Jen when really it isn't. But even though Jen wants to find out what is up with Eric's deal and why he won't work with the other Rangers in order to, try to capture Rancic and his mutants, because they all have the same goal. But it seems like Eric, when you have him and the Silver Guardians, they do things their way, and the Rangers do things their way. But even though they've been doing this since the show began, and that's probably one of the factors why you got a character like Eric, who, he's brash and how he is character wise, because he's always like that. And I don't know why, because I wish we had Six Rangers like him in Power Rangers today, but we don't, unfortunately, because, well, again, times have changed. Koto Yakamata directed this episode. I think he was one of the many people who was behind the original Time Ranger Sentai and decided to come to America and direct the American adaptation of some of these episodes. Because I've noticed some of the people behind Time Ranger had involvement with the American adaptation. Just like Ryuta Tasaki, when he came on to help on Power Rangers, and when he came around to direct and some such of episodes for Lost Galaxy and Lightspeed Rescue, after Ryuta Tasaki had involvement with Gingaman and Gogol 5. It seems like some of the people behind Time Ranger also came by to help with the production on Time Force for some episode adaptation. This episode is also notable for bringing back an alum from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, speaking of which, to do the voice of Conwing. You know, that's another thing about the names of these mutants. I mean, the mutants always got to have the prefix or suffix to the word con to their name. That's just like with the orgs later on next season in Wild Force. That each org monster the Rangers battle, they have to be named after a certain type and certain species, like, you know, Toy Org, Bell Org, Turbine Org, Ship Org, cell phone org, and all of that. But every mutant that we had, especially all the X-Vault mutants in this season, they're all called like Vexicon, Artillicon, Cinecon, Conwing. It's endless. And then these security guards are just basically cyclobots in the skies. This whole scene here is based on what I saw in the original Time Ranger episode when Naoto was taken by a bridge as well. But I think it was really in the river fall in the original Sentai, but in the adapted version, it's on a bridge. Yeah, Conwing was actually voiced by, believe it or not, Carter Grayson himself. But also, speaking of, you know, some of the voices in some of these seasons of Power Rangers, I've noticed, well, post-Zordon wise, I've noticed that several former Rangers have voiced some monsters between here and Wild Force. For instance, Sean C.W. Johnson will be the voice of Conwing here. Valerie Vernon, who voiced, Valerie Vernon, who played Kendrix, the Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger, would be the voice of Katemptra in the Lovestruck Rangers episode. Jason Font, who was Wes, the Red Time Force Ranger this season, would come back during Wild Force as the voice of the Bulldozer Org in the episode when the Rangers first get the Kongazord formation. It's kind of odd, isn't it? Also, this is not the only time this has also happened. Other former Power Ranger actors have also provided voices of monsters after their time of having the helmets and the suits are being hung up. Walter Jones, you know, Walter Jones had some involvement with some voices of some Power Ranger monsters. He did the voice of Hexiba's Nightmare Monster in an episode of Lost Galaxy. Catherine Sutherland would do the voice of several monsters in Power Rangers. Archie Cowell was the voice of, you know, General Vengeance in Forever Red. You know, it was nice to see the Q-Rex in American footage again. Last time we had Q-Rex in American footage was back in Clash for Control. I'll probably get around that two-parter in these commentaries eventually. Of all the Time Force Megazord suits that they got for American footage sometimes, they only have the Time Shadow Megazord costume, which is seen here when we get to it, and the Q-Rex and Quantosaurus Megazord suits. But too bad they don't have the regular Time Force Megazord costumes from Time Ranger. Just only the Q-Rex and the Time Shadow costumes they got from the Sentai. And you can briefly see Naoto, which was Eric's Sentai counterpart, because what I liked about this episode is the editing between how it was done in Sentai and, you know, with Jen leaping into the water. It matches well with what was in the footage. See, episodes like this proves that you can do some good editing from the Sentai footage to American footage, and this episode has some brilliant details of editing from what was done in the Sentai with, you know, done here in Power Rangers. And I think I have to give this episode kudos for some brilliant editing between footage, because when Eric was wearing that white shirt and black pants, it matches well with when Naoto was wearing it in Time Ranger. Also, speaking of the Time Force Megazord does not appear in this episode, just the Time Shadow. But the Time Shadow has to defeat the Q-Rex briefly, because it seems like, oh, like the Time Shadow has some beef with the Q-Rex still. I guess they have. I guess these two Zords have some unfinished business from Clash for Control. I guess, sort of. Recall back in my Unfinished Business commentary last time, I said that this episode and Unfinished Business have something in common with Female Ranger and Sixth Ranger with their pep talk scene, with Sixth Ranger being the lone wolf character. This was more subtle here than it was done in Unfinished Business between Merrick and Alyssa. Because in that episode, Merrick was just all brutal, like, I can handle it. I have to deal with him alone, that sort of thing. But here with Eric, he discovers now that the four Rangers, say for Wes, are not from here. They're from the year 3000. Giving away to the fact that, yeah, we know that the other four Rangers are not from here. Giving away their secret is going to blow, Biolab's cover. Is going to, given, Eric Jen warns Eric that if he tells them that the other four Rangers came from the year 3000, it'll blow their mission, it'll blow their cover, and they have to be sent back to where they came from. But it never explains where the heck the Quantum Ranger morph came from. But when I was watching Time Ranger, when I got to the end of that series, when I was watching Sentai, originally, for spoilers for those who haven't watched the Sentai of Time Force, the counterpart that Alex was based on, the first Red Time Force Ranger, where the other four Rangers came from, Alex's counterpart was originally in Time Ranger was the first Quantum Ranger of sorts, Time Fire, but it never came to be. Yeah, it would be weird if you had Jason Font play Alex here instead of having Dan Southworth playing Eric, and suppose Eric was never the Quantum Ranger. It'd say, what if Alex came back and never died and came back from the future with the Quantum Ranger morpher? But it would be weird seeing Jason Font playing both, a brash Alex, and have them being played as twins. Oh, background music from Power Rangers in Space. It's very common with a lot of the Power Ranger series I watch. It's like, whatever music you had from this season would appear next season or next season. I understand, to sustain continuity from one season to the next sort of deal. I get it. Saban was always known for reusing music from past Ranger seasons, and while you have music made exclusive for whatever succeeding season. They had the green screen Dan Southworth when the Q-Rex was doing that, and when he commanded the Q-Rex to stop. Yeah, that was some weird green screen effect of, Conwing growing big. But the Rangers are not the focus in the episode. It's the Quantum Rangers episode. Right there, you can briefly see the Time Shadow Megazord once the Q-Rex falls down in US footage. Man, I miss explosion effects like this in Power Rangers. Of course, this was back in the original Saban days. The best part was when Jen tells him that they have to work together. I like it when Eric yells, "I work alone!" Oh, some foreshadowing for the finale where one Ranger has to fend off against a bunch of Cyclobots in the same area. Again, that mystery man. Well, of course, we've seen Time Force pretty much already. We know who it is. I really need to bring up about this Battlizer for our 6th Ranger here. Personally, I never was a fan of the Mega Battle thing for the Quantum Ranger. I know this was in the original toys from Bandai America, but I really hate this Battlizer. I mean, it's just rollerblades and whatever this stuff is. Of course, this was lifted from the toys, but it just looks really cheap looking on the show. But I'll give the toy version of the Time Force Mega Battle thing with the rollerblades. It did had all of the metallic pieces on them, but it's just like, why? Of all the Mega Battle armors, you could have gave, when Bandai was doing the toys for Power Rangers back then, they could have gave the Quantum Rangers something different. Also, the red, blue, and green Rangers also had this kind of Mega Battle armor in the toys as well, but I'm glad I didn't get none of those from the toys because it wasn't all that interesting. Rollerblades and all that other stuff. But of course, yeah, Power Rangers, while you tell stories and stuff as a TV series, you also have to tie the toys, the show with the toys sometimes. And then of course, not everything that Bandai made for the toys, we're never going to make it into the series anyway. And that little girl, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. We had an already decently well acted child actor in the show a couple of episodes ago, which was a Lucas episode. But with the girl here with Eric, it's just bland acting. And also, this is some of the lamest Chroma King. And when I look at this now, I'm like, yeah, I understand. This was back 2001. It was 2001 with this kind of stuff, but it was still acting like 90s era Power Rangers, where okay, we got to mesh what's behind green screen, with certain Rangers, and then also that's the same background plate of these buildings they used in Lightspeed Rescue's finale when Ryan and Carter were trying to stop the Megazords that were under Queen Banshira's control and trying to stop the ceremony from happening. And also that effect when they did the Time Strike thing from the Time Force Megazord, it's poorly made in my opinion when I look at now in retrospect, and that was a really cheaply way to end that part with the monster. And especially again, the Mega Battle is just not that impressive. I mean, again, if you want a better decent 6th Ranger Battlizer, like I said, I mean, it takes, for 6 Rangers like Eric, it takes time for him to be a part of the team, but he's still a lone wolf, nevertheless. I mean, that's been a common thing in the post-Zordon era. Magna Defender was like that. Well, actually, the original died. Eric is like this here. Merrick was like it next season. And then during the Disney era, it was Trent. And also that bruise, because it's very visible when he comes inside. You can visibly see Eric with the bruise when he's in Mr. Collins' office when he's talking to Dr. Zaskin. Yep, you can briefly see it. See, I wish Power Rangers had this kind of stuff like this again. Whenever we get the dramatic moments, and when we see characters getting brutally injured, we hardly ever see that in the newer seasons. And when I look back on the original Saban era and the Disney era, whenever Rangers get injured, we see scars and bruises and some small blood, some blood on their faces or on arms, and bandages is around them when they get hurt. They never hardly do this anymore in Power Rangers because again, the show today, they're always playing things too safe and too soft. When I compared the shows that we got now versus back when seasons like this aired when I was a kid, I mean, this was when they were actually being more real. Whereas the Power Rangers today, they're just too soft and trying to be too safe and trying to be too much like MMPR. Between this, okay, as soon as you see Wes riding off with his motorcycle, this is the last time we'll see Eric again until Movie Madness. So these next 4 episodes is about the 5 Rangers. So we won't see Eric again until, again, Movie Madness Part 1.